Welcome back, everyone, to R2Kast number 44. Another really interesting episode for us today. I've said on a few occasions the reason we started this podcast was to showcase the different people and different jobs in this industry, because originally someone asked, how do I get in? How do I find my way in this industry? And I thought the best way to do it was just show it. We've had a few different examples back in, over the time of the podcast, number 6 and number 29, where we've shown people that have started in farming, really not with much farming background. And that is, again, today what we have. So we have A and A Livestock, or Abbie and Andy. If you want to say hello, guys.
Hello.
Yeah.
Before we get on into another excellent episode of the R2Kast, I would just like to thank the sponsor for the show today, The Scottish Farmer, a weekly magazine highlighting everything you need to know regarding the Scottish agricultural industry, whether it's breaking news, events happening in the sector, market reports, classified ads, or just wholesome stories happening in the industry. The Scottish Farmer's got it for you.
So they look very much more comfier than me, it must be said. I'm sat here on my swivel desk chair that squeaks, and I try to stay still the whole time because it sounds like there's a cat in the house. They're sat on the sofa. It looks like we just sit with a beer, and I'm kind of jealous. Just probably trying to arrange a sofa for comfier podcasting from now on. It would be good, guys, to hear both of your sort of backgrounds. We always go over folks' backgrounds, and it's normally, I was born on a farm, or my such and such is from a farm, and I'm looking forward to hear what you guys' background was. So, are we doing, you choose who to say first?
I'll go first then. So, not from a farming family at all. The passion for it came from my grandmother. She used to work with cattle long before I was born, and then the men down her side of the family were herdsmen, sort of your old-fashioned travelling herdsmen. But then that skipped generation. My parents aren't involved in farming anyway. No relatives at all were involved by the time I was born. Family doesn't own any land or anything like that. But yeah, the passion was there. Went to agriculture college, did that. Was really interested in the cattle and other livestock, not so much in cereal production at all. And went straight into work and been working in the industry for 9 years now.
Sorry. What about yourself, Abbie?
For me, I grew up in Essex in Chelmsford, so it's an absolute concrete jungle. And
what dreams are made of?
When we pardon?
What dreams are made of? The concrete jungle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the thing, they were not. So my sort of escape would be when we go on family holidays in our tiny family caravan, and my granddad would bribe farmers to let us stay on their land for cheap. So we went all around Britain, and we'd stay on these beautiful farms, and I'd see all the farm animals and being outdoors, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. And by the time I was 6, I decided that I wanted to be a farmer. But then obviously we'd go home and I'd be back somewhere completely not rural, no farms around. I'm not from a farming family. Mum and dad aren't anything to do with farming. I didn't even know any farmers. So when it came to college, there was an agricultural college sort of fairly close to me, but I just panicked because I realized that I didn't know any farmers. I didn't know the first thing about farming, and I bottled it, and I did childcare instead, and just sort of ticked along doing that for a few years. And then I came across Andy's profile on a dating app and saw that he had cattle, so obviously swiped right. And we got chatting, and on our first date, he told me about a small number of cattle that he bought for himself. He was renting some land and sort of starting to build up his own farm, and I just couldn't believe it that I'd found somebody who was also a first generation farmer, because I had no idea before we actually met up that he was also not from a farming family. And we just clicked. We both had the same dream, and a few months into the relationship, I said, let's go for it. Let's do this. And we've been crazy enough to carry it on almost 3 years later.
Excellent. Oh, I think that's brilliant. Did you notice Andy as well as the cows, Abbie, on the dating app? Or was it the cows that really drew you to him?
Straight to ask about the stock.
Yeah, I think it was about 10 minutes into the date that I brought up, oh, so you've got cows. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Got to go for what matters. You've got to look for what matters.
Exactly.
Did you end up going to agricultural college, Abbie, or no?
I did not. No, I've learned everything from basically Andy's taught me a lot, cattle side of it, and a bit about sheep, and everything else I've just had to learn myself, and just I read a lot, so a bit of a bookworm. I mean, YouTube, what can you know, there's nothing you can't find out on Google, so basically, yeah, learning as we go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people, I mean, I'm a uni lecturer, so I probably shouldn't say this, but there's a lot of people that think that, and I'm not just saying think as in I disagree, I think this is absolutely true. You can learn anything on YouTube. And I think that's true. The only thing is you could say, well, it's not peer reviewed, but everything is there. There's so much you absolutely can learn on there. And yeah, if you want to sort of focus in on something, there's journals that you can still find. There's absolutely ways to do it. And the whole idea that you sort of said you bottled it and you went to do childcare is I'm sure that it's worked out for you as you've seen, but there's a sort of, that's the sort of thing we have to change. And I've spoke a few times about the sort of mentality, no, that's the wrong word, the sort of aura that the industry gives off, that I think a lot of us make it as inviting as we can, but there is some kind of thing there that's not quite perfect in that sense. And do you think that hit you, or do you think it was a personal thing?
Oh no, completely. That was completely it. I knew I'd have this moment where I'd walk into this room that would be full of second, third, fourth generation farm, or at least people that have been around agriculture for the majority of their lives. And I knew that I'd be the odd one out, and I'd be the one that didn't understand any of the terminology. And yeah, I panicked. Yeah,
and yeah, I get it, and it's, I think, just for maybe anyone listening, it would be interesting to hear your advice on this one, Abbie. Just in that position, you go to college to learn. You don't go to college to tell people, you know. And there is that mentality that you have to know everything, and it's such an aggy thing. It's not in anything. Well, it must be in other things, but we notice it because we're in this industry.
It is one of my regrets. If I could go back in time, it is something that I wish that I had done, just to say that I'd done it and sort of, you know, face that fear and, you know.
Yeah, things are obviously working out. I wouldn't put too much pressure. It's working out fine. And just on college, Andy, where was it you went? How long did you study for?
So I went to Eastern Otley College, studied at Otley College campus. Studied for 2 years, did a level 3 diploma in agriculture. It wasn't too bad. Sort of all your conventional stuff. Don't really use much of it nowadays. And just to say about talking about approachableness of the college and stuff. Yeah, it's I suppose like a lot of industries, pretty cliquey. You know, when like Abbie says, you meet a bunch of farmers and they're all, or farmer sons even, they're all talking about, oh, my dad's got so-and-so, my dad's got so-and-so, all sorts, and they've all got last names that are known in the area sort of thing, and then you're sitting there like, don't know you.
It never occurred to me. You did what I couldn't.
Yeah, so
I've only just realised that. Yeah, obviously you did.
It wasn't quite so bad, because the course I was on, people in that course, there was only a few that come from farming backgrounds actually, and there were majority of us, there's only half a dozen, were from non-farming backgrounds. So in that respect, that was quite interesting, because in our small group we were sort of learning it all as we went along. apart from a couple of us.
See, my local college would have been Writtle College, and in Chelmsford, and that is heavily agricultural. People do tend to go to that specific college because there isn't one that's the best and biggest one, basically, sort of in the area. So it probably would have been quite a lot of people in the industry if I had gone to Writtle, just because of the location of it.
It's and I say this so often. I mean, I've got countless students that come with no experience, and they're like, "Oh, I'm worried I'm not going to get the best out of this." And I'm like, "You're probably going to get the best out of this because you're coming blank."
Sorry, I was going to say, the people that have no experience of it, you've got the biggest advantage because you're going to have the open-mindedness, try new things, and be open to new sort of paradigms. And whereas this is where I'll start getting too honest and start getting some jip. The generational lot will be sort of could potentially be a bit closed-minded because that's how Dad's done it, or that's how grandfather did it. You know, we couldn't do it that way. We do it this way on our farm, sort of thing. But if you've got no experience, you're going to be very open-minded to all different sort of concepts.
Yeah, you're saying, sort of being too honest, I as someone who is, third generation, I guess, that's definitely a thing. I don't think it's a thing I've suffered from, but it's, but Papa did that, or Dad did that. And I'm like, I don't care what they did. That was 80 years ago, or that was 40 years ago, or whatever. It's a completely different world. We've got 6 times the population to feed. Everything's changing. But yeah, it's really cool to sort of hear you say that itself. You'd mentioned Writtle, Abbie. Funnily enough, I do actually know quite a bit about Writtle. I did 2 harvests in Essex. And first off, I'm going to offer a fantastic compliment. It's the best accent there is. I know that's not something that many folks say.
Well, stop it.
What, the Essex accent?
The Essex, 100%.
You
honestly.
like the Essex? Oh, I can't stand it.
You can't stand it?
No, I can't stand it at all.
I'm turning into a Suffolk girl is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Trying to change the accent.
My granddad actually was from Suffolk, but I didn't know he had a Suffolk accent. I just thought he spoke funny. And it wasn't until I met you that I realised it was a Suffolk accent that he had. It never clicked, but yeah.
When I think, you've obviously got one, like you're saying, Andy, a Suffolk accent's not one I'm aware of. It's not. Yeah. It's not. Now, maybe that's just because I wasn't there. But the reason I guess I was asking about Writtle College is where you're Chelmsford, around Chelmsford. Is that mainly arable ground then, Abbie, as opposed to sort of livestock, or?
Primarily.
Yeah, I think there is quite a lot of arable. There is a tiny bit of a mix. There's a lot of.
There's you got the river, was it River Chelmer? And that's there's a fair bit of meadowland.
Yeah.
Very little knowledge of it. Seems to be a few bits and pieces, mainly cattle, small herds that sort of congregate around that river, sort of meadowland. But primarily, it's your typical Essex. Sort of flat land, arable and roots, onions and spuds normally, land sort of thing.
Sure, yeah. You mentioned, Andy, you've been in agriculture for 9 years, and you also mentioned, I actually thought it was quite interesting, your grandmother's your inspiration, but you didn't really have that contact with her for that inspiration. So how did that come? Did you speak to your parents about, or how did that sort of come through to yourself?
I'm a Suffolk boy, born and bred. We always lived fairly rural, not like on farms or anything, but in the countryside. I don't know, the passion to work with animals has always been there for me. I always loved being around animals. I was always drawn to them, more so than people. So I work far much better with animals than I do with people. Like my grandmother, my mother, they're all animal people, and that passion was sort of infused within me as well. And it was just there. I was just drawn to it, and I've, for as long as I can remember, I wanted to own my own livestock, wanted my own cattle. and my own farm one day. So there was a brief period when I thought I might want to be a police dog handler, but then realised I couldn't handle the paperwork and all that sort of stuff. And so, other than that, I've always wanted to work with cattle and eventually have my own farm one day. So, not really thought of anything other than that. Did a little bit of tractor driving here and there, and worked on other farms, but realised after a day or two, I get mind-numbingly bored of driving tractors. Don't get me wrong, you tractor boys out there, fair enough, but cart and grain back and forth to the shed is absolutely boring and brain numbing, from my opinion. So yeah, I've done that, and also got very good at working under people. So thought I best aim to do my own thing one day. So yeah.
And you said, I think I got this right anyway at the start. You said you'd worked in agriculture for 9 years. Is that on places nearby and like tractor driving?
Yeah, pretty much. I started within the industry on a small sort of like farm shop type deal, doing the stock husbandry and that as part of a small team alongside college. And then ever since college, been bouncing from sort of primarily always been trying to be bouncing from sort of farms with stock on, either small number of cattle or sheep, and also done the typical harvest jobs here and there. And then the last 4 years worked on a beef unit as well, sort of honing my skills and seeing also how I don't want to farm as well. So yeah.
That's a brilliant. And seeing other people's systems is great to see how you would do it and also how you wouldn't. It's brilliant. Yeah. I would advise anyone to give it a shot. Have you worked in agriculture elsewhere, Abbie, or just
no, I haven't. I went straight into starting my own business. I don't do anything in halves. I went from 0 to 60 really, from not having stepped foot on a farm to work all my life, and then went and just started our own business. But it felt so natural, and I'm so glad. Although I do regret not going to college, I do think this was the best way for me to learn, because I'm a very practical learner and I can be quite clumsy, and I do tend to get things wrong about 100 times before I get it right once. So to be able to do it at my own speed and do it with someone patient and understanding, as Andy is, so I'm lucky. It just really built my self-confidence and made me realise that actually I can do it, I can do this. Last year was my first time ever lambing, and almost every single ewe needed lambing. So that was talk about being thrown in the deep end. Only watched YouTube videos and read copious amounts of books on it. So when the first one needed help, Andy just sort of pointed the back end to me and went, off you go. And that's the best way to learn, in my opinion.
I think with lambing, it is. I've taken lambing courses. I've had students on the farm at home lambing. My ex-girlfriend, the first time she was there, very well studied. But the first time you see that happening, you just got to go for it. It's not one of those things you can be like, well, just a wee minute, we'll just look this up. It has to happen. I feel like, maybe I'm picking this up wrong, I feel like the regret to have not went to college is sort of, it sits with you. It really shouldn't. There's what's the saying? I love this, and I've said it a few times and I always say it wrong. There's no wrong path. And I think that is so true. Some people say you've got to go uni and do all that. That's nonsense, and that's coming from a lecturer. Like, that is nonsense. Everyone learns in different ways. Everyone wants to do things in different ways, and things happen in different ways. And I think that sort of, I really should have went to college. It doesn't have to be the case, Do you think, had you not met Andy, you would find yourself in farming?
I would have been absolutely miserable if I hadn't have done something, even if it had been only ever come to like a small holding type deal. I would have been absolutely miserable. It would have been something that I would have regretted, sort of way into old age. It would have been my biggest regret. I never could see myself not having a farm. It was so weird because it's not in my family. I didn't even, as I said, didn't even know any farmers. I don't know where this need to do it came from. And I think it was my escape when I was a little girl, and it was my happy place. And I think I associate it with being happy and where I want to be in life. So I think that's why it was such a strong desire to somehow get back to that way of life. And I love being outdoors. I love the countryside.
Yeah.
So it was never an option for it not to happen, really. I think without Andy and us coming together, I do think I would have struggled to get into the industry. I did try to get into the industry by messaging farms and farmers and asking if I could do, experience days and just sort of feeling my way around it. But I didn't get any sort of opportunities that way. So I did sort of, truth be told, I did give up a little bit. I just sort of accepted that maybe it wasn't going to happen, or not to that extent, not to that scale. So I'd like to think that I'd have found my way there somehow, but I don't know, is the honest answer.
It's the answer is you don't have to know that.
That's a good thing. Thank goodness.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know, for those of you listening, guys, I can't remember if I said it or not, on Facebook and Instagram, you can see Abbie and Andy and A Livestock. I think Instagram is at A underscore A Livestock. Is that right?
And another underscore between A and Livestock.
Is it? Right, perfect. So every space is an underscore.
It isn't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we are. And big time on Instagram, must be said. Big time. On the sort of Instagram side of things, which was where I came across you guys at first, was you're talking about the sort of, you would have been miserable had you not have been in farming. And now that side doesn't show, but what shows is how just chuffed you guys are to be in the position you are. And that's just so positive to see and so nice to see. And I think that's a credit to everyone that starts from not zero, but close, and it's great to see that. And for you guys that are listening, if you do go and follow, there's quite often updates about what's happening today and what's going on, and seeing you guys chatting. It's just nice to see and really positive. Was the second you started farming together, was social media a thing in your head, or did that just happen?
It just sort of progressed over time. I'm absolutely useless with social media. I didn't even know how to use Instagram. I couldn't even share a story. Honestly, I had to actually ask people on Instagram how to use it. It was very embarrassing. Originally, it just started as a personal account, and I just started sharing stories and posts about what we were up to. And people sort of started following the account.
Some interest, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then we were still sort of figuring out what we were doing, really, because I'd had my own cattle for a couple of years before I met Abbie, and sort of was muddling along and not really going anywhere. And then we met and got together, and that coincided with me finding another bit of land that had a bit more security, so we could invest more into it. And then you wanted to be involved as well, and then we invested more into it. Like, right, well, we got to think of some sort of business here. What do we want to do? And we actually wanted to sell direct to the public. So, how are we going to sell meat to the public, produce to the public? We thought, well, we could do a website, but social media is free and generating a bit of interest. So we went down that route.
And we should actually probably mention, we're obviously talking about you guys' journey into farming and so on and so forth, which I do want to get into. But just on the social media side's great, because it's a diversification itself. It assists into that side of things. I think you guys are sitting at 11 point something thousand on Instagram, which is big for farming accounts on Instagram. That's middle to top size of farming accounts that are around in the UK. And when did that happen? Has that been a steady growth, or has that been like a one day something happened, or what?
It was definitely a steady, I'd say it was a steady growth.
About a year or so.
About a year of it. I was absolutely over. I couldn't believe it when
You
we
worked hard at it.
when
You
we
say you don't like it, but yeah, Abbie works hard doing it, the Instagram side of things.
well, it's important for me to a bit, sort of your line of thinking as well is I want to inspire and get people on board with that are perhaps not from a farming background that are thinking about getting into it, as well as educating our potential customers, and just sort of show that you can do it. It isn't unachievable, because I always say if 6-year-old me had seen someone like me now and seen me farming, and the fact that I'm not from a farming family, it would have done so much for my confidence and have really pushed me to sort of go into that maybe a little bit earlier in my life. And that was sort of 50% of the drive behind showing what we do sort of daily, and also showing the struggles. We're very honest.
Well, transparent, more like transparency. We just try to decide the good side and the bad side of things. So, and what we do and don't do, and why we do and don't do things. So it's all about transparency and people knowing what goes into the food and what doesn't go into the food, and where it comes from, and how the animal is reared and how it's treated.
That's so important. I think maybe in the past, agricultural media, and I'm not just talking about us folks on Facebook and Instagram. Before that was a thing, I'm talking about TV and that sort of thing, countryfowl, landwards, so on and so forth. We're guilty of hiding the truth. We're out lambing today, everything's perfect. When in actual fact it's just never the case. Yes, you get days and weeks at a time when it is, but it's so important to show that struggle, I think, anyway, and you guys clearly do as well. And from a why people support you, I only came across you in the last few weeks, maybe a couple of months. One thing I really enjoy watching is the fact you guys support each other. You've got different backgrounds, and watching that is a really positive thing. That's a positive message to put over. Abbie, you mentioned just before we started filming, you described yourself as a nan from an Instagram perspective, but things are clearly working. I mean, posting on Instagram isn't about being a genius with a camera or being whatever. It's about portraying that story. And you guys have that support side. You've got the sort of showing the struggle, showing the real side of what's happening in your day-to-day lives and now job. And the other thing you mentioned maybe about 5 minutes ago, Andy, you felt just before you met Abbie, you're sort of just working away, not really knowing where to aim, sort of just that sort of thing. That's a place that everyone is at some point. And you have documented that transition to where you are now with a goal, what you're aiming for. And that in itself is motivational for people in your position, and that sort of thing is brilliant. And I'm talking at the minute, so people that are watching this can't see Abbie.
I'm agreeing, yeah.
It's really positive, and I love to see it actually. So it's thumbs up for that. It's good from that side of things. On the farm, I tell you what, actually, before we even get into on the farm, getting land, whether it's rented, whatever, leased, whatever it is, difficult, as Abbie's face has just shown. Could you tell us about that process, what's involved, and how you actually managed to get that opportunity?
Be tenacious. Don't take no for
Yeah,
an answer.
so I started looking. I wanted to get cattle and started looking for land to rent on about 18, and didn't find any land to rent until I was about 2021. I spent roughly 3 years, didn't know anyone, didn't go to young farmers, that wasn't my scene at all, and basically just went around looking for little fields, little rough bits of grass that didn't look like they're being used, and pretty much just hang laminated signs on gates with my phone number on, asking who the owner is, and knocking on doors and going up to farmers and saying, "Oh, what are you doing with that field over there?" sort of thing. And yeah, spent 3 years with a lot of sort of being ignored, so just be signs being taken down without any sort of communication, or just being turned away sort of when people didn't realise, or when they did realise, sorry, that I wasn't from a farming family, and being only sort of 18, 19, 20 and saying I want to get some cattle and graze them on this bit of land, saying, well, that's daft, not going to make any money doing that. How do you know what you're doing? You don't know anyone, that sort of thing. So a few years of, a bit of a struggle, and found a little bit of land that was controlled by a much larger farm in the area. And that was, I actually put signs on that bit of land 3 or 4 times before that, and eventually went on the land registry and found out who owned it, and then just bombarded them with emails until I got a reply, pretty much. And went from there, and then we got the biggest chunk of land we lease. Just happened to send an email because I wasn't happy with the bit of land I did find. There's no fencing, it's near houses, it's too far away from where I was living at the time. Sent an email to another farmer, and it just so happened that he had a big chunk of grasslands and parkland that was being poorly grazed, and he was looking to help out a younger person getting on there, and provided me with a good opportunity to get on there and a bit more security, so I could invest more into it. And then that was, like I said, that was roughly when I met Abbie, and then went on from there. So it's not been the easiest thing. It's nowhere near been the hardest thing in the world, and don't get me wrong, there was some good old boys that helped me along the way as well. Not all bad, but it wasn't the easiest thing trying to get some land.
I would say if you were to ask me what is the hardest part about starting a farm from scratch or getting into the industry, if you want to have your own business side of it, would be finding land to rent, depending on where you are in your situation. For us, we had to beg and message, you name it, all sorts, to find land, and you have to get very used to the word no, and you have to take it on the chin, and you have to keep trying to the point of becoming annoying. It has to get to that stage, because if you're really passionate about it and you've really got the ambition, you do need to be tenacious. You need to keep trying until you get a yes.
That struggle and that challenge looking back on now, must be quite proud. It must be. It's working now. You've shown all those folk that didn't respond, all that sort of thing. Yeah, maybe you get in touch with someone and they don't have anything, fair. But if you sort of ask someone to contact you and they don't, it's a wee bit like all you had to do was say sorry, no.
I did my little signs and always said, please let me know if you're interested, or on the other hand, please let me know if you're not, so I could sort of move on to the next bit and that. And I think I had one person maybe actually call me and say, oh, sorry, we're not interested. Other than that, I just took, notices just got took down. And after like the 10th or 13th time I put one on there, I gave up and moved on to the next bit. But because it's also a dreadful shame to see bits of land just sitting there and not being nothing done with, when you could be grazing animals on there and producing protein to feed people and yourself, and utilising the land as well. That was, it wasn't brilliant. But looking back, we've been fair, also been really bloody lucky, really. And a lot of opportunities have really aligned really well. And we're very, very lucky to what we've got now. And it's all been sort of sheer luck that's sort of fallen in our laps eventually.
And a lot of badgering people.
Yeah, a lot of determination and persistent. But things aligned and it's working out.
We're actually lucky enough now where we are having people that own land come to us now. And we're actually having to turn people down because we just... they're either too far away, or we just don't have the numbers to keep up with everything. So that's such a reward. It's sort of come full circle, and we're in that position now, and it's sort of proof that we're doing okay. So it's nice to have to have that sort of feedback and those opportunities sort of freely given, and all that hard work paid off. So
that's a good problem to have. People contacting you.
It is indeed.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe even the stars align over the next few years or whatever, when the chance comes and you can accept it and it's near enough by, then that comes forward as well. And if expansion's an intention, then maybe that's the next step. What sort of area is the lease?
So our biggest chunk is about 70 to 80 acres, I think, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then also other bits and pieces that we're grazing. We're probably grazing just under 95 acres, maybe 98 acres probably. Yeah, but the biggest chunk is about 70 acres in one block. But that has all different sorts of things going on it. So at certain times of the year, we lose sort of half of that. But it's not too bad. The way we run our stock, we utilise every bit of grass and look after it well. So not too bad.
And so you're looking at the best part of 100 acres there. That's brilliant. And do you mind me asking what age you are? Is that rude?
I'm 27 and Andy's 25.
I'm 25 now.
Right. Yeah. And that's been sort of since you were 21, Andy, and then you came in, Abbie, at the same time. No, it's great. I'd love to hear these stories. From a what's on the farm perspective, what sort of livestock are you running?
So primarily, the bulk of the business is we're a small beef suckler herd, made up of primarily native breeds. We've got some red poles, some belted Galloways, some Hereford crosses, beef shorthorns, and then we're trying to establish and stabilise the genetics on the terminal side of things to cross with the natives and sort of try and cross our own sort of type of cow, trying to build a sort of lighter cow that can outwinter well, because we outwinter our cattle. So we're trying to breed a lighter animal, a lighter cow with a lighter mature weight, so about half a ton, 500 kilos. So it's lighter on the land in the winter and doesn't take as much looking after, and looks after herself as well. But also then from the stabiliser side of things, has the growth rates and conformation that perhaps the natives don't quite have. So that's that. And then also we have sheep as well. They're sort of secondary type thing.
They're Wiltshire horns.
They're made up of Wiltshire horns, sheep. So we got them solely for lamb and mutton production, because no point in wool nowadays. So they're a shed. They're a shedding breed. They shed their wool and have a fairly decent carcass on them, and they're working so far.
Yeah.
So that's what we're compromised of now, and in the coming weeks we're going to be trying to start up some laying hens and start selling eggs as well, selling like pasture produced eggs as well. So
that pasture produced hens, be that broilers or layers, is interesting stuff. It in my head, I'm like, how does that work? But so many folk are doing it. I don't know if you have heard of pasture bird in the States. I think they're the biggest pasture growing.
Right. Yeah.
I think they might be meat based. I think they're broilers in the States, but I heard them on an ag tech podcast once, and I'm like, I started following into it and reading a bit more into it. But that's brilliant stuff. I like to hear about that. I quite like to follow that and see sort of where that goes and sort of the future of that. And I maybe you said this, Andy, and I didn't pick it up. What number of cattle and sheep is it?
Oh, roughly? Sorry, yeah. So the breeding herd, the breeding herd consists of about 19 animals now.
Right.
That's including cows, heifers, steers, and bulls. We've got 2 young bulls we bred ourselves. We've got 8 breeding females. and an assortment of steers and followers after that. And then also this year we bought some dairy-born steer calves from Angus cross Frisian things to help us keep on top of grazing and hopefully be a little bit of a cash crop at the end of the year. Just because, you know, cattle was the longest production cycle I could have chosen to start with. So can't afford to go out and buy, you know, some nice red pole steers just yet. So we had to go and get some dairy cross things from a nice chap. And
30 of them.
30 of them. So we got 40 head of cattle at the minute, and 20 head of sheep. Yeah.
Well, 30.
Well, 30. So yeah, 30 head of sheep even. Yeah.
Yeah. No, good stuff. And you mentioned sort of selling online, which is a fantastic way forward. That sort of selling at the farm gate, that idea of not just chucking everything into a market and getting what you're given, which albeit this year has been good. It's not always. How did that start? The Instagram sort of helped by selling it on, and Facebook and that. But was that a decision of either of you, or did you both sort of just think this is the way forward? And how's it going now?
I think it was fairly common sense. We had the first couple of steers killed our first year we were together, and that was sort of just for family and friends and ourselves, and so we sold that sort of very unofficially, but what was legally done, and just family and friends.
Yeah.
And we was really into traceability, the whole sort of process of following the animal where it comes from, and trying to get people connected back with that, because I worked on a polar opposite farm. I worked on an intensive beef unit, and, you know, seeing the conditions that they produced in, and, you know, seeing animals die of pneumonia and up to their knees in crap and stuff. You know, we sort of wanted, like, we want to do something. We want to make a business of this. So the following year we had more stock available. Got certified so we could sell to the public, and started selling to the public. And
it never really occurred to us to do it any other way.
No,
I think.
it made sense, because being worked on farms and that, sending them to the market and making £200-300 profit, rather than get it butchered and processed ourselves and then sell it ourselves, and then cutting out like 2 or 3 middlemen, and we keep a vastly bigger chunk of profit than that. It was a no-brainer, really. Why on earth would we send it to market? And especially around here, there's only 1 or 2 markets that really we could get to. And I know for a fact that there's not really much of a place for native bred cattle. It's primarily, you know, your continentals, pretty much your limmies and your Charolais around here that get top price. So there wasn't much point taking, you know, like a 550 kilos native bred steer to the local market, because you'd have got nowhere near the value that we can get when we have it killed and sell it ourselves.
And that way we get to really connect with our customers, because we get to actually meet them. They can come and see the cattle, they can come and see the sheep, they can see what we do. And we're very lucky, as you said before, to have a following on our Instagram and Facebook. So they have seen it from, in some instances, from, you know, birth to death. And it's important for us to then follow that through, and then be able to meet them face to face and still answer any questions that they have and talk to them about it. It just sort of nicely finishes off the whole process, we think. Sort of putting a face to the name, and sort of personifying the process rather than it being from a market, in our opinion.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's that sort of, you said birth to death, it's almost like birth to death and beyond, because you're making that connection with where it's going in the end, you know, which is a good story. You mentioned traceability, Andy. It's good from that perspective, and people buy into that story as well. How was that certification hard to get to sell to public? Is that quite an easy process?
It was actually
It wasn't
really
too bad.
easy.
Had to sift through a little bit of jargon, but no, it wasn't too bad at all, really.
Right. Yeah.
Andy's mum is really good at
Yeah,
all that side of it. She's fantastic with sort of all the admin side. So she did help us sort of figure out.
Yeah, bless her. Yeah, she's very good.
How to do it, and it was just a case of a couple of phone calls and.
And over the phone sort of conversation.
Because we don't handle any of the meat. We have it butchered. We have obviously abattoir, and then we have it butchered, and then we get it back all packaged and labelled and sort of everything sorted. So because there's no contact with the meat, it was a lot more simple to get that certification than if we were to butcher it or handle it ourselves or add anything to the meat.
It's the most basic certification. It basically enables us to freeze packaged meat and then sell that, and which is what we wanted. No faff, we don't bugger about individual cuts and stuff. We just do pre-designed boxes, and then we sell them to the public, and they get what they're given, and they like it or they don't, sort of thing.
No, I think that's the best way to kick off. Maybe down the line you look at doing sort of bespoke boxes for folk.
Probably not.
No,
probably
not.
No, yeah. Just less hassle at the minute. Yeah, no, fair.
It feeds in. It feeds into sort of how it used to be, where people would sort of not make do, but the cuts were all different, and it wasn't just the prime.
Well, people nowadays only eat minced steaks, but they're missing out on a lot of the bigger joints, the stew and steak, the shin. There's all sorts of lovely cuts that have got tons of flavour. And also, like the offal as well. We're hoping to get, the hearts back this year for ourselves and potentially some other people. It's just getting people more connected to the whole animal. And, a bit of meat isn't just a bit of meat. It came from an animal, came off a carcass, and getting people connected back with that so they can sort of realise that they can't just have 20 steaks and a pack of mince or something. Not every animal's the same. So just trials and tribulations. Because last year we had an animal killed and we pre-sold all the boxes, and for whatever reason she didn't have as many steaks as we thought she'd have.
Well, that was a lesson. Yeah, we learned a lesson there.
We had to explain to people that ordered them that they're only going to get X amount of steaks instead of what they were going to have, and that soon whittled out who were loyal customers and who were genuinely interested in the product, because some said that's fine, and then a few said they didn't want it, so we just cancelled the orders, and that's what we're about. No nonsense. So
I had never considered the whole people just think cattle create steaks and mince. That's so true. I'd never considered that, and that's a really good point. I like the idea of there's so much more to this animal. There's so much more utilisable product here. I like that. Yeah, no, I've changed my mind on the bespoke idea down the line. I like that a lot.
Trouble is, you get people that just want steaks and mince, and then we'd be left with all the joints and stuff to then try and sell separately. So, so the way we do it, in a box, you get everything from mince right up to the joints and the steaks and everything. You get all that, and when we work it. So hopefully this year we'll pre-sell the boxes, and we'll hopefully get a bit more educated guess of what the individual animal is going to have, so we can sort of make sure we underestimate the boxes we're going to sell from that animal. So we've got plenty from that animal to go around, sort of thing.
Brilliant. No, good. I like that. Good ideas.
I hope you've kicked your feet up and got comfy and enjoying another fantastic episode of the R2Kast with another really interesting guest. I would just like to quickly take another second to plug the sponsors of the show today, the Scottish Farmer, and I would strongly advise you to go out and pick one up this week and see even more of the fantastic people that are in our industry.
But people don't like cooking now, though. People, they like takeaways and such like.
It is ironic though, because I cannot cook.
I
know, it's so bad. I actually burnt we had pizza for dinner tonight, and I absolutely burnt it to a crisp. I cannot cook. Andy's the cook, thank God. I always said that I'd need to end up with someone that could cook because I'm absolutely hopeless.
Yeah, I think with a slow cooker, little can go wrong. You
say that.
Even cooking with an oven and stuff though. It's not. I'm like, I could do the basic stuff pretty well now. It's not like hard stuff. To like season a joint, sear it, whack it in the oven, and put a load of water on it and a few vegetables with it. It's not hard. Yeah. Like people can do it. It's just people. The way we look at food now is very peculiar. We just look at it as either a sort of a moment of bliss on the taste bud, sort of like sugary junk, or just we need to put something down our neck to keep surviving. We don't look at the investment our food is nowadays. Like, food is medicine, in my opinion. Like, what you put in your body is what you're going to get out of yourself. Yeah. So if you're eating crap, you're going to feel crap. But if you're eating, good stuff and you're cooking it well, you're enjoying it, that's going to be much healthier for you and that. And also people just want stuff quick now as well. People are always on the go, fairly materialistic and stuff. Don't want to spend money on good produce nowadays. Don't see that. Whenever people query or try to haggle with me, I always say, look, it's, in my opinion, it's an investment. You're investing in your own health here. It's good stuff. It's good for you. Or you can just go and buy some processed crap and, see how you feel after you eat all that heavily processed cereals and vegetable oils and all that, and sugars and all sorts, and see how you feel after that, rather than see how you feel after you've eaten a nice beef casserole.
And if people want to haggle and get it cheaper and whatever, I don't see the point in doing that, especially with like yourselves, a startup business. Like, help people. Quite often the times when smaller businesses around me have started up, I always try and buy from them. And let's say something's 55 quid. Chances are they're getting 60. Like, I'm not being like, 45. You get nothing from that. You save a tenner, but that business is still going to be there in a year or two if you're just supportive of it. And it's so much better given to sort of smaller folk than. And this isn't me having an issue with supermarkets, because for the most part, I think a lot of supermarkets do well. I don't know how I just broke my pen. A lot of supermarkets do well in a lot of places, such as Aldi, Lidl, however you say it. I don't know. I don't like Tesco. I don't think Tesco are good at all. But there goes the brand deal with Tesco. That sort of just supporting local people makes so much more sense, and that money that they give to you, I'm sure, is going back into what your local community is. That's how rural places survive. One thing that I noticed, having followed you recently, is you're both now full-time farmers. That must have been a big jump.
It felt really natural. I mean, it was a big jump, and financially it was probably the most stupid time for us to do it, because we've just moved in together.
Got bills to pay now and stuff, and haven't really got a lot of savings to fall back on. So financially, it wasn't very smart at all. But this year, it was the grass got way ahead of us last year, and we couldn't utilise it as well as we could have done.
Carving and lambing was a nightmare.
Carving and lambing was a bit difficult. Me being full-time work, Abbie living a fair ways away. Excuse me, and yeah, this year we were like last year selling produce, and we couldn't keep up with demand. I was really surprised with the interest in it, and, people really getting in key with what we're doing and sort of thing. So this year it was like, we want to produce more, we want to triple in size. I thought, well, we can't, the work's there, can't physically do it and hold down a full-time job as well.
We were working like full-time,
harvest work.
And then come weekends, we were working on our business all weekends, evenings.
But that still wasn't
we were just
enough.
Absolutely shattered.
So the work was there this year, and so we said, well, yeah, we want to do it. The actual practical work is there to be done, so we're going to have to. And also, I was fed up as well. Was working and seeing how it shouldn't be done, and getting fairly fed up with people I was working for and that. So thought better get out of here before I do something silly. So we left that and started doing our own thing, and yeah, it's going all right.
It's been fantastic. It's so nice to wake up in the morning and look forward to going to work.
That's it, out the door. Yeah, exactly. What was full-time work before?
I just worked in a supermarket, ironically.
Right.
It was just to pay bills.
Yeah, I was.
If it was Tesco and you liked there, I'm sorry.
It wasn't. It was not Tesco's. It was not. I didn't like it, so it's fine. Don't you worry.
Grand. Other supermarkets are available.
Yeah.
And yourself, Andy, you were on a farm.
I was on an intensive beef unit, just as a stockman, doing the routine husbandry and whatnot. But coming from, seeing our stock grazing, so we out winter, we just feed grass and hay, sort of getting into, well, at the time we were getting into the regenerative farming, and now that's the way forward. That's how we're practicing now. Don't use any chemicals and that sort of thing, with the the welfare of the animal at forefront, and trying to be in key with nature, running it all sort of like that, and then going and then working on a farm where at certain times of year there's not one animal outside, they're all in sheds, and it wasn't the ideal intensive unit. So well, we had animals that didn't have pneumonia and weren't getting sick, and they were outside and that. And I was going to work on a farm that had numerous cases of animals being sick, and watching animals die of pneumonia ain't pleasant, and then having to drag them out afterwards isn't pleasant either. So tugs on the soul after a little while. So you got to do your own thing and do it a proper way, sort of the way we want to do it.
And it was something we both wanted to do from a really young age, so it almost felt overdue somehow. I mean, it was a huge risk. It still is. Will we be successful? I mean, we're completely under the understanding that we're never going to be rich. We both know that we're never going to be rolling around in money, but we just want to be able to carry on farming. That's all we want. We see it as a way of life, not just a business. We both love doing it. We wouldn't have done it as well as having full-time jobs if we didn't absolutely adore it. I mean, you know how testing and hard it can be. So we wouldn't be doing it if we weren't absolutely besotted with it.
Or believe in it as well.
Or believe in it.
I think the truth is, I don't know how hard it can be, because I'm born and bred in a farm, wasn't really involved until I was maybe 16. Yeah, I helped at lambing and stuff, but I wanted to be a footballer. I look more like the ball than the football. But anyway, I wasn't involved, and now I've went on. I'm off the farm, helped mum and dad pretty much all my holidays I have, but I certainly don't know how hard that jump is, and I commend folk hugely, because I can't sympathise. I can't empathise with it at all. I can barely sympathise with it. But you say, you said there, Abbie, you're never going to be rich. Yeah, but is rich the amount of money you have in the bank, or is rich the fact you wake up happy?
That's completely that would be our argument. But we do get sort of asked that question quite a lot in regards to is it financially viable? And the question is, watch this space. We wouldn't be doing it if we didn't believe in it. You're completely right. It's not about how much money you have in the bank, but vet bills and rent do need to be paid. So
obviously,
being realistic. But
obviously, we believe in it, and we're not money is second, but we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't think we could make a living off of it. But our biggest goal is to produce, non-chemical, high welfare, grass-fed protein that people know that no nasty chemicals have gone into it. So people can consume it with confidence and have a healthy product, and also feed ourselves healthily, and knowing that we're not eating anything harmful, and knowing that the animals are living a good life and living on forage, and being able to display natural behaviours and just generally acting how ruminants should be able to act. So yeah, that's the overall goal, and I think yeah, we just got to carry on what we're doing and keep going. Yeah.
I guess I should say when I said sort of how much money in the bank, I meant sort of making sure you're still feeding yourself, making sure everything's fine, and the farm can. I just don't have $1 million sitting in the bank. I just mean, as long as you're happy to get by, make ends meet.
That's
you know,
we completely agree with
That's
you.
it.
But yeah, quite a few people sort of are very focused on the financial side of it.
Yeah, we're not materialistic people at all. You know, all our money goes back onto the stock and whatnot. So that's our wealth, is being able to breed animals and hopefully produce the healthiest protein we can for people.
Yeah, there's many a metric of success. A lot of people seem to think it's money, and fair enough, but it's whatever makes you happy. And I think a lot of people that have that proper rat racy chase never get to the happiness part.
Strange people.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it a wee bit. Don't get me wrong, but like I sort of always live by the whole always be happy, never be satisfied idea. You're always trying to push for something, but always enjoy it when the process involved. You mentioned sort of regenerative agriculture and trying to minimise chemical inputs. Are you looking down the organicity line? Are you looking at organic or not that far?
Well, practically we run organic, so
right.
We don't use any fertilizer, herbicide, pesticide, fungicide on the land. Don't use any wormers or fly repellents. Obviously, we don't sacrifice animal welfare. When an animal has to be treated with any sort of drug, then we do so. Or fly repellents. Prime example of this. Last year, I was stuck on a bleeding baler, and we had a weird spell towards the end of September when it was still warm and humid. The sheep were still being bothered by flies. We'd gone the whole summer without putting any fly repellent on them, but we had one sort of close call of strike. I got there and the maggots had just hatched, and I got them just before they started eating these two ewes. So yeah, we got so fed up of being so worried. I didn't want to turn up and find something being eaten by maggots. So that was an example of we did then put a fly paw on for the animals' welfare, because we couldn't be there to constantly check them and try and use natural repellents. So when we can, we don't use chemicals at all unless absolutely necessary for animal welfare.
And then when we do have to use chemicals, we will then do a video or a post to our customers
to let people know,
why we've had to use it going forward, just so they're aware of what's being used on the animals.
But we're always very careful and very thoughtful when we have to treat something. If the animal is just showing a bit of discomfort and it's something they could get over, then we give them a chance to get over it. But as soon as we see any sort of sign of actual pain or something that's only going to get worse, like an infection, or something that's just going to progress negatively, then we treat it straight away with the appropriate antibiotics or form of medication or whatever process is needed.
We don't believe in certification. We think that
we're not going to go down that route just yet. But practically, we run organically, but we're not certified, and probably won't be at any time soon. We're not grass fed certified, but we only feed grass and hay. So we put a spin on it and call it grass reared.
We say to people, if you want to see how we run our animals and what we do, come have a look.
Our policies are open and honest and transparent, and people that are genuinely interested and being sensible, we'll talk to, tell them what we're about, and tell them how we run things, and like I said, show them stuff if they want to come and have a look. That's how we work things. We just talk about it. and are transparent about everything we do.
Well, if I'm ever down your way, expect a visit.
Yeah,
always welcome.
Always
Definitely.
welcome.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying sort of not going down the certification route. What you're talking about is an organic system. Treat when it's required. That's it. That's sort of how it works, isn't it? And also in the world of fertilizer at the minute, yous will be laughing in that sense. Definitely. It's I've written a fair chunk in the last however long, just about sort of the story that you guys have got from not farming to where you are, and one thing that's sort of I've not mentioned that's been there the whole time is quite often you'll say something that happened, and you're like, next time we'll learn from that. That's brilliant. So many people pretend things don't go wrong. I like the idea that things go wrong and you're like, well, let's change that. The amount
Things
of steak
go wrong all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Of course they do. And you guys have been doing this less than 5 years, and you're already looking at progressing to a larger size. And yeah, there's going to be issues, but it's good to see just how positive you are about the whole situation. It's been really cool to sort of look back on the last while and sort of look at where you guys have came from and where you are looking to go to, and where you are as well, where you are at the minute. But there's 2 questions I asked everyone on this podcast, and I think I've done, this will be number 44, and I think I've asked everyone, so this will be the 88th time I've asked these questions. That's getting quite sad. Yeah, no, if I forget them, that's embarrassing. Yeah, we tend to sort of draw the podcast to a close with the 2 questions being: 1, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And 2, and this second question I think is great for you two, it's literally made for you two, if you had tips for folk coming into industry, what would they be?
In 5 years, our goal is to definitely own our own bit of land, even if it's just a couple of acres, just something that we can call our own. We're always going to have to rent land.
We want that security. I've put a goal on the next 2 years to own land. Like Abbie said, just a few acres, just so we got 100% security, so we can do whatever the bloody hell we want to do with it. And to live on it, have full control over it, and somewhere to live, hopefully. Build a herd. I think we're aiming for sort of roughly 30 or 40 cows plus followers, similar sort of numbers of sheep. 5 years shouldn't be too difficult. Should be there. Just be a bit more established, more well known for producing non-chemical, high welfare grass-fed protein. Producing more beef, more lamb, eggs, possibly even meat birds, chicken and duck, possibly. Experiment with those sort of things, and hopefully working with more people, getting on more land, and working with other farmers to sort of get that sort of regenerative farming sort of out there, and try and show people how it's done, and just be successful, don't you? That's what you want to be.
To have learned from our many mistakes that I'm sure we're making 5 years.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah, but you say many mistakes as if all you do is mistakes. You got to learn. And
that's the only way you learn.
Exactly. Imagine how clued up we'll be in 5 years.
Yeah.
We'll be experts.
Forgotten more than we'll know. And have I forgotten another one? Yeah, tips for folk coming into industry.
Be tenacious. Don't give up. I know that's quite cliche, but if you want to get into the farming industry, you really have to be really tenacious, and don't take no for an answer. Really focus on what you want to achieve, what you want to do.
But have a look around, see what sticks out to you. Are you mechanically minded? Do you like sitting in the driving seat? Do you like working with large animals? Do you like working with smaller animals? Do you like working with soil? Do you like working with plants? Maybe do a bit of research and sort of maybe see if you can discover what sort of aspect you're really interested in, because that'll save you time and going down all sorts of different routes, because you could go into agriculture with a very sort of broad spectrum, or you can find your niche that you're going to go into, because eventually you will find, well, you might be there are some people that have a very broad approach across the industry and do all sorts, but then I'd say most of the time people settle into stock production, cereal production, other sort of aspects of the industry. So maybe do some research and then go into it, so you're more focused, so you can save time. And yeah, just be blindly stubborn. Just be driven. You've got to have a passion for it. As cheesy as it sounds, if you haven't got a passion and drive for it, and you don't really want to do it, you don't love doing it, you're not gonna succeed at doing it. You've got to have that passion there behind you, driving you to do it. Otherwise, it won't work, and you will get fed up of it.
Reach out to local
just
farmers
keep
and
going.
community
Just
as
keep
well.
going. Just
Try
try.
and find that avenue to gain experience.
Just do it. Just do it. Listen to the good people and ignore people that are saying otherwise. Take advantage of people that are being genuinely helpful, and anyone else that says anything, bugger them and just carry on what you're doing.
Depending on how much experience they have, if they can find a mentor or a local farmer that will help them.
Not everyone with experience knows what they're doing, though.
Well, no, but finding someone to help.
Yeah, I would agree, Abbie, that even negative people, if you listen to them, you probably will learn something. Not necessarily something you have to take on board. It might be something you don't have to take on board. But I've even found in my past, even if there's naysayers or negatives or whatever, just listen to what they're saying, and you might pick up something useful for yourself. But no, very good stuff. And you mentioned, and I had a feeling this would be where you wanted to be in 5 years, was owning land. Would say owning land came up, but it was far away from where you were? Would you do that, or are you homebirds like where you are?
Abbie would, I think, but it's taken me and now us, like 4 or 5 years to sort of start getting recognised and starting to build contacts. So my view would be, yes, we might have stock and some capital to uproot and move elsewhere, but then we've got to build. I'm not good at building communication with people well at all. It's thanks to Abbie that we've come this far on the communication side of things. So that'd be a big deal to uproot and start over again and build contacts again, and then also learn the different landscapes, how the soil reacts, how the plants react and stuff, and then how the stock gets acclimatized and all that sort of attitude and attitude of the customers in that area as well. So
for me it'd be building up our customer base again. We've worked so hard to get local customers.
We're just building a good sort of base in the area now, and I believe we drive around a lot and see numerous acres that aren't being utilised and not being used. So we just need to build up that capital to where we can go to someone and try and get hold of a bit of land. I think it's perfectly doable. So
see you in 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure both your drives will be, and I hope to follow on Instagram and Facebook. We'll follow the journey, see where you get, and I'm sure it'll all be good places. And thank you both for coming on. It's been great to chat.
Thank you. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Yes. Oh, I guess to have someone on in the UK, you're about as far away as we could have done, which is great. I like that. It's good to sort of get all around. It's great to meet different folk, and it's a networky industry, as you say, Andy, and it's good to meet sort of everyone from every corner and every side of it. So thank you very much for your time. To the listeners listening, I do not know what the next podcast is because I'm not actually that far ahead at the minute. What I will say is, I'm saying this to you two guys, this will be number 44. two ago, number 42, which actually, as we're filming this, will be not tomorrow, Friday, but next Friday, is Joel Salatin. So when you're talking about regenerative agriculture,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we like him.
Yeah.
I think you'll like next week's episode. Then it's a good one.
Oh, very good.
It was quite a big bag to get him on the podcast. To be honest, it was quite
He's a super guy. Yeah, he's really cool.
Kind of the king of the whole regen stuff. Really, sort of that family was sort of where it started. As we talk about, not going to ruin everything. Number 42 for that one. But as always, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you to you two for coming on, and we shall see you next week.
Well, that's it. Another R2Kast finished, another agricultural mind opened up. And I would just like to say that getting these guests on board, it does take time, and it always has done, but I've now went weekly, and with that comes even more time required. And I would just like to finally thank once more the Scottish Farmer for sponsoring the show and making that much more possible. Please be sure to get in touch if you've any ideas of people you'd like to see on the podcast, or maybe ideas you have for me presenting better, because I definitely do require that. See you in the next one.